Good morning and welcome to the Walton County Technical Review Committee meeting for Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022. Do we have any announcements this morning? Rachel, Chrissy? Then we will move. Not sure we have minutes this morning either, so we'll move forward to project review. I think the first three are requests for continuances. We can take those individually. We have a request to continue the Tall Pines Daycare Edition. I actually to remove this one from the agenda because it was tabled at the last meeting. So we have a motion to remove from agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item has been removed from the agenda. It can come back when it's appropriate. The Gulfview Estates, we have a request to continue to the March 2nd, 2022 TRC meeting at 8:30 a.m. in this location. Can we have a motion to continue?
Continue.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is continued to the March 2nd, 2022 TRC meeting at 8:30 a.m. in this location. Agenda item number 3, the Destin Land Connection. We have a request to continue to February 16.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to continue this project to February 16, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. in this location. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is continued to the February 16th meeting, and that will bring us to the first project that we will discuss this morning. The Bishop Landing PUD. This is a major development review by Kelly Schultz. Kelly, if you can introduce it for us.
This is a request to approve by development order. Project number is MAJ 21000030. It's a major development order application that was submitted by Jenkins Engineering on behalf of BT Florida LLC. The request is to develop 208 dwelling units that are broken down into 116 townhomes and 92 single-family lots. There is a community park that includes a pavilion, pool, and pickleball courts. There's also a dog park, a community garden, a wedding venue, and a trail system. The project is being reviewed as a planned unit development. The project site is 103.8 acres with future land uses of residential, mixed use, and conservation residential. Zoning districts of the site are neighborhood infill, small neighborhood, and conservation residential 2-to-1. The property is in District 5. It's located on the east side of Talbot Road and 0.6 miles down South Church Street, on the west side of South Church Street. There's a number of parcel numbers involved in this request. They're listed in your staff report. Before the meeting this morning, I handed out some items that have been received since the staff report was presented. One would be some comments from an adjoining property owner, Ms. Joyce Lanning. And then there's also notes from a community meeting that was held at the request of the community. The meeting was held on January 25th. So the notes from the meeting and a sign-in sheet was also presented. I'd like to ask that the staff report and then both of the documents handed out this morning be entered into the record.
So entered. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone have questions for me?
Looks like we've got quite a bit of interest in this particular project. The applicants already had their required community meeting.
They've had the required community meeting for the infill portion, and there are the minutes were uploaded into CitizenServe. Yes.
Any other questions for Kelly? No. We got a number of outstanding comments. We'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Jamie.
Morning. Jamie Eubanks with Jenkins Engineering. I don't have any questions with regard to the comments we've received. We've gone through them, and first of all, thank Kelly for getting those out. I know she was out sick for a good bit there, so thank her for that. We did have a chance to go through some of the community comments, and the development team has met with the community on, 3, 4, 5 different occasions, trying to come up with a project that will not only be satisfactory to the developer, but also something that will benefit Walton County and the community as well. One of the comments that Kelly received, there were a number of items that citizens' concerns that were expressed at the meeting that they had with staff and Kelly on January 25th, and I just wanted to run through a few of those because I think they're important. I'll jump around a little bit here, but one of the things we've heard is in regards to Bishop Tolbert Road and whether that is a private or public road. From the development side, it doesn't necessarily impact us to any degree. However, it would be beneficial to the developer if that road were improved. And from what we've heard from county staff and county leadership, we believe it would be beneficial to the county. So the developer's lawyer reviewed the situation. Title work was reviewed. In addition, we reached out to Public Works and Scott Rosenheim, County Surveyor. And every single document that has been produced has shown this to be a publicly maintained roadway, and we haven't seen anything to the contrary to this point. We specifically, when we were speaking with the county surveyor, he pulled up the data that in 1950s, there was a court case that actually with St. Joe that was settled, and 66 feet of right-of-way was dedicated to the county for public use. So that's the information we have. We think it would be beneficial to providing secondary access off of US 98 in the long term. Some that we've spoken to at the county have a long-term goal, I believe, for secondary access that goes all the way to Mac Bayou Road. So we believe this would be beneficial to it. So I just wanted to address that first. There were some comments about impacts to wetlands. You know, this is a 103 acre, almost 104 acre site. It's got about 40 acres of wetlands. And right now we're at about 0.4 acres of impact. So I can tell you that the developer has gone through many iterations. We started with 7 acres of impacts, down to 5, down to 3. And just from talking with county staff and community, I've really got that down to 0.4 acres for some of the crossings, is really what that mainly pertains to. There's comment from the citizens about closing mosquito control ditch. The developer actually met with Darren, actually met on site, discussed this with them. There's a small ditch that currently runs along the roadway to the current residents on the site. And as our discussions went on with the mosquito control district for 2 reasons. One, rather than piping and filling that across the entire site and underneath development, mosquito control, the discussion was we can give it a straight run to the bay with more volume, less hydraulic bends, and that it would be a better situation for everyone. So that's part of the reason for the relocated mosquito control ditch. It's not actually being closed. We had some comments about concerns about the wedding venue and noise and amplification. I will tell you that that venue is not open after dark. It is there to fulfill the requirements of commercial use as opposed to a loud restaurant on the bayou or on the finger of the bayou, something like that. It is day operation. There's no power to it. There's no sound amplification. It is meant to be a quaint, intimate spot that could also be used for educational facilities with the schools if they wanted to walk the trail system. Let's see what else here. I don't really miss anything. There was a question about the density. So the developer's not taking advantage of any density bonus points at all. There's about 17 acres of small neighborhoods, almost 4 acres of infill. And we have used the base density for that at a minimum. 4 acres for a small neighborhood, 2 acres for infill. Across the whole site, there would be 242 allowable units. Currently, we're at 208. So developers actually doing just over 80% of what the minimum base density allowed is. There's comments about a marina for the development. I can assure you, and the developer's here to speak on anything as well if need be. There's not an intent for a marina. There's an intent that if the community has a pontoon boat that they want to provide to their residents that you can sign up to take out at times, that is possible, but this isn't a marina with multiple slips that people are coming and going from. I believe the rest are just comments that staff already had, but those were the large ones that I saw. And certainly, I'm sure there are some here that wish to speak about it. So if they do have questions, I'm here, developers team's here, and I'm happy to take any questions from staff as well.
Thank you, Jamie. Just for a point of clarification, this is being proposed as a planned unit development, which includes a requirement for the controlling PUD document.
Yes.
The PUD opportunity in our code provides the board an opportunity to install additional controls for the protection of the community. The things that you discussed related to the commercial use area and those limitations, those would be included in the PUD document.
Correct.
Controls beyond what the zoning, the zoning district controls and the rest of the land development code would provide. So that would provide some additional protection for the neighborhood?
Correct. I agree. And our PUD document does currently, for example, limit the hours on
Hours of operation
Hours of operation
the area
on
you
things like that.
described, and the operation of the boat slip that you also
I don't believe
described.
that's in there, but that's obviously something amenable that I'm sure the developer would be happy to add language, limiting.
We do have a number of comments, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. Want to take an opportunity to hear from anyone that has a technical question or comment on this particular project, and we'll give you an opportunity to respond to those.
Can I do a clarification real quick on something?
Sure.
So in regards to Jamie's comment, and my understanding from the county surveyor, Bishop Tolbert Road is per the Santa Rosa Plantation plat, which is a public easement. However, confirming yesterday with our District 5 road foreman, the county currently only maintains to the power line easement. That portion north is privately maintained, but it is located within a public easement or right of way.
Thank you. We'll get further clarification once Scott's back with us. Anyone wishing to speak on this particular item? Ms. Morono, if you could come to the podium.
Good morning, Mr. Carpenter. Good morning, committee members. My name is Barbara Morono, and I am representing South Walton Community Council today. Well, how did we get involved with this project in the first place? I hope after my talk with Jamie and Adam, they're not sorry that they invited us to their meeting last August. But they reached out to us before they met the community, which was a great thing. This is the first time a builder and a developer and engineer has come to us. And our meeting did take place in the middle of August. Alan Ficarra was there, Margaret Landry, Celeste Cabina, myself, Mr. Brock, his financial component, Mike, I believe his name was, and Jamie Eubanks. We all met together and we looked at the conceptual plan. And we discussed various options, especially in the common area. It was very impressive, but we all know there's a lot of details in a PUD. It was informational. It was really a getting to know you meeting. But we also knew the next step was to meet with the community, and we encouraged them to extend the invitation beyond the 300 feet, which they did. A number of neighborhood meetings did transpire, and we appreciate Adam and Jamie's availability and transparency with the neighbors. But now we are here today to discuss the technical aspects. And Mac, you always talk about technical aspects in the staff report, and that's the first step. And I want to send a thank you out to Kelly Schultz and her whole planning team for their time and effort in compiling the staff report. And I want to thank Kelly for actually going and meeting with the neighbors to discuss concerns and issues. Well, why have a planned unit development? Mr. Brock is combining 9 separate parcels for a total of 103 acres, 43 acres of which are wetlands. Almost half of these acres are wetlands. The parcels are conservative residential, small neighborhood, and neighborhood infill. They're clustering all of on the north end of the property, and the development is going to have 208 dwelling units, 92 single-family dwellings, and 116 townhomes. A possibility of having over 1,000 people and at least 2 cars per dwelling unit. Well, getting back to why have a planned unit development? A planned unit development is a process for developers to offer unique design elements, which we find lacking in this plan. 116 cookie-cutter townhomes are not unique, nor are 92 single-family dwellings. The 9 homes bayfront may be unique, but they are not compatible with the homes across the bayou or in Churchill Oaks. And 50 feet must remain untouched except for a walkway to the bay. Those lots need to be larger to accommodate the additional 50 feet of untouched land that's required by the code. The connector road to Church Street will only serve Bishop Landing and is a necessary evacuation route and fire safety route, but I would not call it a public benefit, which is what must be in a planned unit development. The main reasons developers like PUDs is that the design can incorporate a simpler design standard and pack more residential housing that would otherwise be permitted. This property would look entirely different if those 9 parcels were developed separately. Since our initial meeting with Mr. Eubanks and Mr. Brock, we have come to realize that Bishop Tolbert Road is a private road that not only has been maintained by the Terry Tolbert and Vernon Bishop, but there are some other unique issues that Mrs. Tolbert will explain. Compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, need for a shoreline buffer, stormwater, compliance with a 100-year critical storm event, homes built on a slab foundation, elimination or change of a mosquito dish, and a wedding venue. These are concerns are just the tip of the iceberg, and I know they'll be discussed today by the neighbors that will come behind me. So in closing, there are too many issues to move this project today, and we agree with the suggestion of the staff for a continuance. Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Who'd like to be next? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Terry Talbert. I'm a lifelong resident of this area, Walton County, and I've been living on Bishop Talbot Road for over 40 years. I've actually roamed around in the woods a lot more ever since I was a kid, before we ever even owned that, so I'm very intimate with the parcels and pieces that we're talking about. I own the 70 acres and an adjoining bayou front parcel that does adjoin the Bishop Landing PUD proposal. I realize this is a technical meeting, and this is the first one I've been to, so I'm going to keep it as technical and brief as possible. As far as the Bishop Talbot Road question goes, I've maintained continuance of the evidence from 1909, when U.S. government under Taft sold my particular piece of property to Mr. Churchwell. He then sold a couple of times, but it was a government lot. It was never owned by Charles Cessna. I have records that go all the way back. Vernon Bishop's was a government lot, never owned by Charles Cessna. So there, and in the abstracts, there was never anything found that he ever owned that. So as far as some people are under the impression he gave easement on that line, he never owned it. So I see that might be a legal issue later.
Yeah, I could ask a question?
Sure.
If this was a government lot, those government lots typically came with patent easements for access and utilities.
I have not found one. I have looked to research.
It would have been included in the original patent deed for the government lot.
Okay, I have the deed. I have all this stacks and from every piece of paper we've ever gotten. I cannot find anything. It just says no patent. There's no patent government. I can find that for you to clarify that for you if you like. I have not been able to find one. I do have an attorney looking into all this now. But anyway, I don't want to.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's an issue. As far as the road goes, Steve Antell's family bought the piece I have. Vernon bought his. They decided, okay, here's a line. It's our combined property line, whatever, adjoining property line. Vernon told him, Bishop, I will build a road in through. You say I can use your half of the road. I'll use my half. We'll build a road. He was very, very, I don't know how any of you know Vernon Bishop or knew him, but he's a stickler about that road. I mean, we communicated weekly about that road because he and I maintained that road with my tractor, backhoe, his tractor when it ran for over 40 years. I spoke with the county. They confirmed 0.31 tenths of a mile they claim to maintain. Okay, where the pavement comes off Highway 98, where the yellow stripes, where they four-laned, stops, Bill Bell, that owns Bell Mac Roofing Company, he personally fought for 26 years to get the county to do anything, and they wouldn't. So he personally paved that himself. It's a little, but he'd paved that himself so that he could get his trucks and people in and out of his business. From there on, there's some little bit of dirt to the little stretch to the power lines. Well, the one big project that, I won't say big, but project that the county did do is when they put the new big metal power poles up and took all the wooden ones down, they crushed the road and the county had to come in so that people could even get in and out. But when we have storms, we have issues, the road washes out, and we fix it. We have equipment. The county lady did tell me, 2 of them, they've done some mowing of the woods on the side where there's the power electricity pole comes down, and they have done a little bit of work on a mosquito ditch. That's all they have on their records for 40 some odd years. So, and I got off on a sidebar a little, but we've maintained the road. Let's see. Vernon built the road himself, and he was very adamant about never allowing the county or anybody to come in there and take over the road, and he became even more rabid about it after they improved Church Street and paved it. There was a spring that fed Churchill Bayou, and it would flow up. We would go and swim, crystal clear. When they improved Church Street, dug the big ditches, raised it, paved it, it crushed that spring. That stopped a lot of the flow out of the bayou, and so his land was becoming, instead of 3 or 4 feet deep, it's now 3 or 4 inches deep in places. And that, which brings me to the stormwater issue. There's one big stormwater ditch that comes.
Can I ask a question just for my own
Sure.
edification? When did that paving improvement that crushed the spring occur?
I don't know the date. I'm going to say it was in the maybe late 70s, maybe, something like that. But in any case, the bayou has been getting shallower. Some other people are going to address that. I'm leaving that part out. But I'm aware of, you know how Thompson Road floods, cars float occasionally. The big stormwater ditch with the big concrete covers comes down the east side of Bishop Talbot Road. All right, it diverts off. There's another mosquito ditch, but all of the woods, neighborhoods, all the runoff run towards Vernon's and towards the bayou. My piece of property has a big ditch dug in 1938. It looks more like a creek now with cypress trees, but it transverses my whole property, and it eventually dumps into the bayou too. So there's going to be they're the only 2 big places for all this water to go for hundreds and hundreds of acres. And I've been all over it, and it's places we couldn't even ride our horses, you'd sink to the bottom. So I'm worried when we have heavy rains, now we have issues. When you get all this cleared off, and even Mr. Brock said, if they get it cleared, the economy slumps or things do this, it could sit that way. And unfortunately, that happened some with Churchill Oaks. And a lot of that sand ran into the bayou and is slowly filling it in. There's little islands appearing, and anyway, but that's a whole nother thing. Bill Bell is involved with this and very interested because he has maintained his portion of Bishop Talbot Road for 26 years. He's out of the country, couldn't be here today, but he is involved with all this. Let's see, what else did I want to just... I was always told it was a private road. When we bought the land, Vernon and others told us, you will have to do your part to maintain this road. And Vernon smiled and said, you will never have commercial property. I mean, you will never have commercial activity down here. And even in his one piece he sold years ago on the water, he put deed restrictions in place that who could travel the road and for what purposes, and some utilities and a limited number of people that he actually named. I don't know how that transfers, but that was an issue, and he laughed with us because said, you'll never develop this because you can't get my half the road, and we laughed and said, well, that's great, we don't ever want to develop it, and so you can't either. And we had a very close relationship, and he was adamant, this is a private road, as long as it's not maintained or other things done to it, no one's going to question this. There was never an easement unless you find some patent easement someplace. There was never an easement from Charles Cessna because he never owned. This was never part of what he owned. Let's see what I may have left out because I didn't just read it like I planned. I jumped all over the place. The post office still today will not deliver our mail to our home because it is not on a county maintained road. And I have letters from the postmaster denying. And I said, okay, I put a mailbox way up by where Bill Belmack paved it himself by his business. And they still today will not bring our mail and say it is not a county maintained road, just 0.31 from the highway up to the power lines, which leaves over 3/4 of the rest of the road that they don't do anything with. And one or two little things they've done over the years, that's not been anything, nothing major. A little mowing and the mosquito ditch people did a little work once, and that's it. So I wanted to get that across that we will stand by that until we legally figure that out or get whichever way it goes. I would think 40 some odd years of a lot of hard work and buying tractors to make sure I could keep my road open should count for something.
Could you look at that map and point to the area that you're specifically talking about?
Okay, this is Vernon. This is called I own a little bit 78 and then on the bayou.
Okay.
All this on the left.
Yes, ma'am.
That's fine. And then all
Right, I can see that. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We always planned to conserve this property, and to be honest, when developers would go look at Vernon's, and Vernon and I talked back and forth, if he wasn't going to sell, I wasn't it. Most of the developers that wanted Vernon's only wanted Vernon's if they could get ours, because we have a lot more upland, and we have a few little swampy spots, but nothing like Vernon's, and we talked about it. And so they're really like, well, the private road issue, there's not enough that's not wet or going to be add huge amounts of fill and expense to bring up. that we really can't use this without having your property. And I mean, this is weekly, almost daily. I get calls, letters, and that's been what I've been told anyway. Let's see, what am I forgetting? I mentioned the stormwater because the other big stormwater deal, I'm sure you're aware of all this, is the one that drains all the woods, all the neighborhoods, everything from Musset Bayou east. Well, everything on the east side of Bishop Talbot roads drains all those, even on Thompson Road and under the highway, all those neighborhoods, all the forest, and even parts of Church Street that are not far from Vernon's naturally drain towards Vernon's and towards the bayou. The bayou's already filling up, where I'm a little concerned with this amount. We have issues, I've seen it this deep, when we just get a heavy rain on the road. You wait a day, it's usually gone. Every now and then we have to fix a washout. But that's before any of these hundreds of acres have been disturbed. And if you move that one big mosquito ditch that they want to move that runs east and west, well, the rest of Vernon's will be wetlands like they were before he put that ditch in, because the wetlands are here. He dug this big ditch, and all this is a lot drier now, but you close that in, what are you going to do? Put bigger ditches straight to the bayou to where it's just inundates it and fills it up faster is all I can see, especially if there's a piece of land sitting with fill dirt for a length of time that a silt fence is not going to stop all of it. Anyway, I've had issues with two developments adjacent to me, and I didn't do anything about it. The one to the west of me, the Sea Pines, lowest 10 acres in Santa Rosa, waist deep water. I don't know how. DEP sent me a letter of apology because they put big pipes and were pumping their water off that 10 acres, it was, onto my land into it's a mosquito ditch, but there was never an easement there. They came, when I wasn't looking, they dug out enough fill dirt to fill the whole off my land, to fill the whole 10-acre tract, and then they had big pipes pumping the water. The DEP came, sealed them, gave me letters of apology. I was thinking about suing the man, to be honest, and then he passed away that did the site work, so I just dropped it. Churchill Oaks is a nice development behind me. When they dug their two big lakes out, they had hoses and were running water over on ours, and now theirs is this much higher than ours. Okay, that's fine. Maybe it'll stop the hurricane surge some, whatever. We didn't get involved with that. It was a nice big development. But you start doing this on the other side of me, and we're going to go underwater. It's just I don't see how without some super major ditches, and I don't even know how you would handle it with the amount of water on this piece. It's one of the lowest, flattest, undisturbed forever places left in Santa Rosa. But I think we're all in for a nightmare. You guys, the developer, us, everybody, when this starts. I have big concerns about it. We've been offered 6 times the amount of money for our land that he paid for Mr. Bishop's. I can't help but see you put up a bunch of townhomes and it's a flooded, swampy mess and they're gone. I don't see how that will help the value of my property either. It's more big estate-sized lots around me. They're not clustered high density, they're not separated home sites. They may be single-family homes, but they're all crammed together. And we have issues with value for not just the flooding, but the whole complexion, the whole atmosphere that it's going to change in a kind of conservation, estate-sized lot neighborhoods that surround it already. Church Street, I can see it's a better building for that type thing. I think Mr. Bishop's property is a total disaster to try to do something like this on, and to build on slabs is a big concern. So I won't go on about that anymore. Let me see. I think I already mentioned this. Okay. every level of this project, basically, we really want to be scrutinized with a fine-tooth comb for the sake of our community and the whole county, because if we have a lot of problems later, everybody better get ready, because I've picked this hill to stand on.
Yes, ma'am. Could I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure you can.
Parcel that's, the two parcels that are furthest to the north there, inside the red boundary, that are adjacent to the boundary, were those Mr. Bishop's property? The infill designation and the small neighborhood designation appear to have been the zoning for the future land use for that area for quite a long time.
Part along the water.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know why that got classified like that, because we made a really big deal with the lot everywhere.
If we could capture your comments on the record.
Sure, I apologize, my first foray. We went all the way to the Commissioner of Agriculture, met with him, lobbied extremely hard to keep the forestry people from disposing of the 160 acres that's between us and Highway 98. I don't see them giving up any kind of opening improvements on that road or any of that kind of stuff there. We always plan to keep ours conservation. We don't want to develop it. We're crazy because we could make a really nice sum of money, but we love it here. We've grown up here. We don't want to leave. We want to maintain some semblance of our lifestyle that South Walton is so desired for. And I just don't think these PUDs and these things in nice big neighborhoods with estate-sized lots where people have built $1-million homes, and there's one behind me just is under contract for almost $2.5 million. It's not even on the water. We don't want to see our value go down, but we are really interested in conserving it really for the community. I'm looking at ways at possibly conserving it forever. And I could use $30 or $40 million, but where do you draw the line?
At your heart.
And it's got me. And so some of this is emotional, but most of this is actually logistical, in my mind anyway, because I do know it is a problem there. It's one of the lowest compressed big pieces we have in this part of Santa Rosa Beach. We have lots of forests out to the east. We have Topsail Hill that I worked hard 4 years ago to get it to be a preserve. But on the west end of Santa Rosa Beach, we don't have that much state forest. It appears that it's going to just be crammed as full as possible. Who cares about the flooding? And we don't want to look like Legion Drive in Destin in 5 years. The developers are gone. It starts running down because this land will eat anything you build, especially out of wood. I can promise you we did. And we're constantly repairing. It will, if it's not really maintained nice, it's going to look like HUD housing in 5 years, in my opinion. With the environment and...
I doubt the lender will let it get to that particular point without taking legal action.
Well, and I probably am exaggerating, but it is an issue. It may be not to that level, but it is something that I am concerned about because it totally doesn't fit in with what's already there. We're trying to have a conservation deal. I don't understand why some of these pieces that are not suitable for dense, something's going to sink, flood, do all this stuff. Why can't we do some big estate lots, price them as such? I don't understand why that can't work, because it has in other places where some folks are interested in having a little bit of nature left around them and some privacy, and not just cookie cutter, no parking. Parking's an issue everywhere. You pave all that over, we're going underwater. I don't really, but I do believe it is a private road, and I really do believe that. And after talking with the Public Works people, I believe it even more, and I believe we can prove that if we have to. I don't want to give up over 2,000 foot of fence and whatever, 33 feet, over 2,000 feet. Is someone going to pay that for that, or is it going to be eminent domain? I mean, it's a narrow one-lane road.
If there's a government patent easement from the original transfer of those government lots to the first owner from the federal government, that is an offer of an easement for utilities and access to the public. And the public is represented by the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay.
If they decide to improve that, it's within their rights to do that,
If I,
even though it's an easement over someone else's land.
okay,
The purpose of the easement was clearly stated in the original patent deed.
if it says
that-
no patent
If that
found,
exists on the property we're discussing.
right,
And that may be in question at the moment, but
Okay.
that's something that has to be resolved before this development could be approved.
sure. Okay, well, I
Yes, ma'am.
have the paperwork that says no patent found, and this thick from all the way back to Taft where he signed it over to Mr. Churchwell. It says no patents found. But that's for another day. I'm just,
But if you have evidence of something that would be of importance to this particular application, you're welcome to submit that to us. We'd be
Okay.
happy to receive that and review that.
okay,
We're going to defer to our county surveyor and our land use attorney to review any documents that the applicant also provides
sure.
to ensure that we clearly understand what the ownership and any opportunity to use that particular portion of the county.
Okay, I am getting a fresh survey done on the road and some other things too, so.
But we'd be happy to receive any information that you might
Okay,
have.
I will provide that. I will definitely be glad to provide that. And there was others, but there other people have some things to say. I've taken enough time. My concern is the road, the flood, the value of my land.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your
coming and
time.
offering your comments. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for your time. My name is Brant Marshall. I live at 229 Santa Barbara Avenue. We're in the Cannell Estates, and there's 5 homes on our street that back up to Bishop Tolbert. Now, I got our survey done, and we've known this. It was a big lure to us in '03 when I bought the property, that our property would butt up to the state forest behind us. That was a big attraction, one of the main reasons we bought this property. I just got my survey done again. It does show that our property and 4 other properties go to the middle of Bishop Tolbert Road. Now, I've heard this easement you've talked about, but supposedly all we knew it was for the residents of Terry Tolbert's house and Vernon Bishop's house. The mosquito ditch has used it to clean the ditch here and there, and then they did use it for when they were working on the power lines. Now, there was dirt road back there, but when they were working on the power lines, the road did wash out a little bit, so they fixed that area. That's the only thing I've ever seen done back there. It was my understanding that there would be 2 cars or 2 families that would use this road, and then if you needed to work on the power lines or the mosquito ditch. I'm fine with that. My whole neighborhood on our side of the street are totally against this. It doesn't make sense. We've had, the mosquito ditch actually runs across our thing too. We've had to deal with water. I have had many water problems where it's been knee-deep to ankle-deep water throughout my backyard. Hasn't come inside yet, but with this new developed proposed PUD, it could happen.
Could you point to where you live in relation to the proposed project?
This is Cannell Estates right here. This Bishop Tolbert Road, my house would be right here, and all these roads right here, where Belknap would be up in here. Our parking line goes to the middle of that road. We pay our taxes on our half acre. This is something we're not wanting because it sounds like if this proposed PUD development does go through, this new road will actually come farther into our backyard. Totally against this. This is not something we want. We bought this property knowing we had the state forest behind us and we wouldn't have to worry about all the stuff that was going to go on back here. I just don't see how this is going to work or benefit anybody in our neighborhood. Right now, we're fine with the traffic that there is, but now if you turn this into a public road, we're going from a couple cars a day to maybe hundreds of cars an hour, especially if people figure out to cut through and come over here. We already know the mess at the end of Church Street and 98, and Thompson Road, if it goes across public road to Bishop Tolbert is going to be another huge disaster and mess. That ditch does run,
Can you,
yes, Thompson Road comes up this way, right? Bishop, which would go across to Bishop Tolbert.
okay,
And if you make this a cut through and make this a county road, we're gonna have another big problem of traffic at the intersection of Bishop Tolbert and 98. On the other side would be Thompson Road. It's already a problem at Church Street. And if you put this development out here, you're gonna have that many more people coming down Church Street onto 98. We just don't understand how this is gonna help any of us, or, we're trying to protect our property and our property value. No one in my neighborhood, on my side of the street, wants anything to do with this. Mainly because if you do put this new road in, you're coming farther into our backyards. Don't want it.
okay, now, let me clarify something here.
Yes, sir.
Today, this is not a public hearing.
Okay.
This is not the forum to say, I don't want this in my neighborhood. What this is a forum for you to do is to identify things in their application that are inconsistent with the county's land development code, comprehensive plan, or those kinds of things. There will be a forum when this gets to the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners during that portion of the review process where you get to stand up and say,
Yes, sir.
I just don't like this idea. I don't want it in my neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Today, that's not the forum for this.
Yes, sir.
Today is to identify what impacts you think are going to
The impacts, yes, sir.
inconsistent with the regulation.
Yes, sir. I'm just concerned about the stormwater runoff that goes behind our house in the ditch, traffic, and protecting our property value. This is something that's a big concern of ours, and I would just, I understand these PUD developments work in some big cities, this and that, but we are not that. We are not Atlanta. We are not a big city.
Could I ask you a couple of questions
Yes,
about
sir.
plan unit developments? Are
Yes,
you
sir.
familiar with Sandestin,
Yes,
Watercolor,
yes,
Watersound,
yes,
Seaside,
yes,
Alice Beach,
yes, sir.
Rosemary Beach?
Yes, sir.
And those that have been here a long time?
Yes, sir,
call
they have.
The
I just-
jewels on the necklace that have made us the cradle of new urbanism, internationally famous for these PUDs?
Yes. I'm just saying this PUD doesn't seem compatible to the area it's going into, especially with the wetlands and everything around it involved,
I
sir.
just want to make a distinction between your description of this project and the plan unit development vehicle for
Yes, sir.
development
Okay.
in Walton County,
Yes, sir.
which has generated tremendous financial value to our county.
Okay. Another concern would be the wedding venue and the noise. And so these are just questions I have.
Okay,
Thank you for your time. I just would ask to please stay out of my backyard.
yes, sir. Thank you very much for your comments. Who'd like to be next?
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm Joe Strauss. I'm Gary Talbert's husband. I also live on the Talbert place. I've lived there for 30 years, along with Vernon, the road issue that she covered and everything like that. My main concern for me, not to double over everybody, this project is, and I understand exactly what you're saying about the PUDs and what it is about Seaside watercolors. That is its own entity within itself, not stuck in the middle and never was, surrounded by a community of conservation residential. We've all established ourselves in that community that way. The problem is that we're all a little far away from each other because we have enough land to be private and to be conservative with our land. Each person that owns a piece that was bought from Vernon that they own now were handed a laundry list of deed restrictions so that it would stay that way. Okay, this particular PUD in the way it's condensed is not what's going on in this neighborhood. This is a venture capital versus community. Now, Seaside and those things didn't have that community around them when they did that. They had their own stuff, they made their own stuff, and the people moved in around it. But they were there first. See, we're actually here first in this sense. So it is a private road. We'll find out it's a private road. It was advertised as a private road. It was advertised as possible development on a private road. It says it in all the MLSs. It says it everything.
Advertised by the seller of the
The
property?
seller, yes.
Okay, and the seller was?
Well, Vernon to begin with, and then Vernon passed, and then
Bishop.
so it was Terry Bishop.
And these are relatives of your
Yes,
family?
that's his son,
Okay.
right. So all the flyers,
Are you aware of any deed restrictions that Mr. Bishop may have placed on any of this land?
I would
similar
love to
the
know
ones
if
that
there
you're-
is any. He always said, because it was, as Terry said, the joke in the middle of the road is, you'll never get to develop, well, neither will I, and neither will you, and neither will, and we just laugh and go on, and well, isn't that great? We don't ever have to worry about that. And he says, his thing was, there's always enough restriction on mine, and it doesn't make sense, as you've seen, because all the developers that have been there to look at this thing, when it was $19 million, they get up at our front door and say, can we give you 40? Because we can't do it without this, and doesn't make sense. The best we can do is a few estate lots, and the road's gonna eat us up. Meaning, we would have to pay so much to build the road out, to do a couple of estate lots doesn't make sense for a developer like this, or somebody that didn't want this to be their passion project and let 3 or 4 nice estate lots, and then build them a nice $1.5 million road that we all get to enjoy or whatever. Again, still being on private road. The whole seller of the whole thing, of everybody that is connected and on that road, is the fact that they have lived 40-something years there, 20, 30, 40 years there, knowing that we live on a private road, we're backed up to a private road, this mess will not come to us. And, well, here it is. We've always worried that something like this was happening, but we've watched it over there. We've seen D.R. Horton come in. We've seen U.S. Builders. We've seen all the big boxes come through during the boom and could not do it. They're like, we cannot put this together. Vernon went ahead, delineated his wetlands so that he didn't have to do this anymore and just go, this is what it is, guys. You want it or not. And
In this particular case, of all of the wetlands out there, from the testimony we heard earlier, they're impacting 0.43 acres of the entire site. How big is this site? 100 plus
okay,
acres?
so this is what really needs to happen.
I mean,
The-
that is the evidence that's been
Okay.
presented to the committee this morning.
And
that
how
we're
many of
only
the
impacting
committee-
0.43 acres of the 106.8 acre site.
Okay.
In our experience.
Have you seen that 0.4 acres? Have you personally put your eyes on that 0.4 acres?
No,
Have
I
any of your professionals put eyes on that 0.4 acres?
Yes, we've had people out there to look at this.
And y'all still come up with that?
3 acres of a 103 acre site?
Okay, that's word
Less
salad
than a
math
0.5%.
with what that is. Because
That's less than 0.5% of the entire site is going to be impacted well.
with 200 units, over 200
Yeah.
units.
That's the plan they're presenting, yes.
Okay.
To manage the impacts of wetlands for the benefit of the public. I mean, you've described this property as a lot of wetlands. We've had lots of comments about the tremendous amount of wetlands. And the developer is saying, my plan impacts less than a half acre of the 106 acres.
Okay. Well,
So that's a pretty heavy lift for a developer in our county to only impact a half acre of wetlands out of a 108 acre site.
okay, and to be able to say that, that's one thing, to be able to know the ground underneath it and to be able to know what it's gonna be able to do after that. Once you put 200 and something units on that piece, you don't know what's gonna happen, you know?
Well, we have professional engineers that, based on their training and their experience and industry standards for developing these kinds of things and all the rules that we have in place, if they say they've met those rules, would you agree that they're complying with the law?
No, I'll beat the hill I die on and I'll fight for
Okay.
it, so.
Right, and you're entitled to that.
Oh, I know,
Thank you, sir.
absolutely, absolutely. But again, we're gonna end up coming back to the fact that the road's going to be private, the fact that we do own piece of the bayou as well too, and the impact of all of this, regardless if it's 1 acre or 4 acres, the fact that of what they're gonna need to do what they need to do is gonna impact us all. Mainly, what it's gonna impact us all is all of our property values are going to crap. So in other words,
And-
his 5 million
Yes,
piece of
sir.
property,
Can I-
I'm gonna end up with a $5 million piece of property when I've got a $50 million piece of property, and he is gonna be gone.
I'm not trying to argue with you. What I'm trying to do is separate the competent substantial evidence that you need to provide to support these statements.
I appreciate it.
So that they can have the same weight as the evidence that the
I agree,
applicant
and I
provides.
appreciate it.
And that if, I know you feel very strongly about this, but if you can provide some competent substantial evidence for these points
And we will.
that offset the evidence that is being provided both by staff and by the applicant, I mean, we'd be very happy to consider that.
Thanks for lining that out for me, because now I know. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Who'd like to be next? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all so much for your time today, and especially to Kelly Schultz for meeting with us on January 25th. My name is Jelena Parmley, and my address is 102 Churchill Drive. My husband and I purchased our lot in November 2019. In March 2021, we moved into our custom home on Churchill Bayou. My lot was the last lot of Churchill Bayou Estates that was owned by Vernon Bishop. Vernon owned the 84 acres that Brock purchased in August of 2021. I was told by Vernon's realtor that he specifically kept my lot for himself and undeveloped because he never wanted to look out across the water and see another home. Even though I never had the chance to meet Vernon, I want to honor his vision and share his love for our Walton County. Most importantly, I share his love and respect for Churchill Bayou. I wanted to take a moment to share Vernon's history with you and why I admire someone so much whom I've never met. Vernon was the longest living native and oldest resident of Santa Rosa Beach until he passed away in 2019. Vernon was a World War II veteran, enlisted in 1942 to 1945. Upon returning home, he opened the VR Bishop grocery store in Santa Rosa Beach. He later leased a service station in Frangista Beach, and he owned a second station in Destin. He was instrumental in organizing and directing the South Walton Mosquito Control District. A newspaper article from February 15th, 2017, named Vernon the father of the South Walton Mosquito Control District. The commission members were Louis Genevieve Maxon, Edwin Walleen, and Vernon Bishop. The South Walton Mosquito Control District was officially established on May 26, 1964. In 1969, Bishop stepped down from the county commission and became the district director. Vernon Bishop retired from the district in 1985. Vernon also helped organize the South Walton Volunteer Fire Department and was a volunteer Walton County Sheriff Deputy. He was a member of the Sandustin's Lions Club, American Legion, where he served as post commander, helped develop Cessna Landing, Edwalline Park, and Legion Park. As a testimony to his faith, Vernon helped to build 3 Baptist churches in the South Walton community. In May of 2019, at 96 years old, South Walton lost a tremendous man. In addition to what I mentioned above, Vernon also established our neighborhood, Churchill Bayou Estates. The first home in our 12-lot neighborhood was established in October 1986, 36 years ago. Our smallest lot is 0.76 acres, and the largest lot is my lot at 1.38 acres. Out of the 12 lots, 2 of them are not waterfront. Our neighborhood consists of a private gravel road, estate-sized lots, and 2 undeveloped community easements to the bayou. South of Vernon's land is Cano Estates. It was developed in 1978. The average lot size is over ½ acre, the largest being 0.80 acres. The proposed PUD has waterfront lots at 0.30 to 0.35 acres, obviously not conforming to our lot sizes. My heart is heavy due to the Bishop Landing Plan Unit development. Please bear with me as I will try my best to explain my concerns. I ask that while you are listening to myself and my fellow neighbors, that you consider the man that Vernon was, his commitment to preserving Churchill Bayou, and what he meant to South Walton. First and foremost, it's important for you to know that my neighbors and I never imagined a developer from Atlanta purchasing this PUD. Most of us had previously researched land development codes and what each one meant for future neighborhood. In addition, once the land was listed for sale, we reviewed the MLS listing. The listing clearly stated that Bishop Tolbert was a private road and low density. The signage at the beginning of the road states private, and a large portion of it is gravel. The MLS docs section has an attachment of an easement from August 31st, 1993, which stated that an easement onto this land, I quote, shall remain private and not become a public road and may only be used for no more than 2 single-family residences and not for commercial purposes. My point is that we considered Vernon's homestead to mirror our neighborhood, Churchill Bayou Estates. Gravel road, waterfront estate-sized lots, single-family homes, and private road. In reviewing the Land Development Code, Section 2214, Section G, new development must show compatibility with the neighborhood it infills. It goes on to read that the density and intensity of the proposed development must be compatible with the surrounding development and designs. Most importantly, the standards for the code state the proposed structures complement the predominant features of the surrounding neighborhood by building setback, building materials, and architectural features. The proposed development complements the fundamental development pattern of the surrounding neighborhood, considering lot area, lot dimensions, and lot configuration. The proposed development is consistent with the extent, design, and location of parking, parking access drives, service areas, outside storage, landscaping, and other site features. I personally believe that Brock is submitting his proposal for a PUD to obviously not have to comply with current land codes. That makes my stomach turn. So, to discuss compatibility, that covenants and restrictions of my neighborhood, Churchill Bayou Estates, allow for the following. The property shall be used for residential purposes only. No building shall be constructed on said property other than one single-family dwelling house having a floor space on the ground floor of not less than 1,500 square feet. And number 3, any garage or other building not attached to the dwelling house must be placed on the rear of the lot. The rear of the lot shall be placed on the side adjacent to the road. This means that the land on the water side is actually considered our front yard. Based on the plan submitted by Brock, this development is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The smallest floor plan that Brock is considering is 1,450 square feet, starting price $300,000. Who is buying these homes? How will they sustain it? Are they selling vacation homes? Overall, does the proposed plan feel like a small resort versus a private neighborhood? Brock is planning on 116 townhomes and 92 single-family homes. There are 0 townhomes surrounding this parcel of land. In fact, the majority of the surrounding land is zoned conservation residential. In addition to our neighborhood on Churchill Bayou, we have Churchill Oaks. The main page of their website, their advertising states, elegantly designed, carefully constructed, and extraordinary amenities. Waterfront lots have sold for over $900,000. Waterfront homes for over $2 million. Per Brock's written transcript dated 9/27 at our community meeting, the traditional 2-level, which is 2,200 to 2,600 square foot home with dock access will go for approximately $800,000 to $1 million. I have absolutely no doubt that if this PUD is overdeveloped with all the density at the water, our property values will diminish. I am requesting that no later than the next meeting on March 2nd, that Brock's team designate the 50-foot setback from water's edge and show proof of their actions. In addition, I'm requesting that the 50-foot setback be written into the covenants and restrictions for the development as nature preserves and with only a small path allowed to the water. I'm almost done, I promise. One key point on Churchill Oaks' website states that they are nestled in the bend of Churchill Bayou and Hogtown Bayou on the bay. This is so important for 2 reasons. Once again, the proposed PUD is not compatible with yet another waterfront community that shares its waterways. Secondly, and probably most importantly, we are a sub-bayou to Hogtown Bayou. We are incredibly small, narrow, and shallow. We are not on the bay. Churchill Oaks already has 1 clubhouse with a pool and marina. I do not know of any bayou that has 2 clubhouses on it. We adamantly oppose the clubhouse and community dock. Not only is our bayou incredibly sensitive, but our quality of life and peaceful enjoyment of our homes will be ruined. I think it is important to mention that during our community meeting on 9/27/2021 with Brock, that they mentioned there are no variances proposed with their plan, that they are just transferring density. How will this affect stormwater? How will this affect flooding and mosquito ditches that have been in place for over 40 years? They also explained that they had meetings with county officials prior to purchasing the land that suggested that they also buy the 20 acres on Church Street, as it would create additional road access. They also stated that they needed to do this PUD because there were so many different types of zoning. But how it feels to me is the proposed changes that greatly affect the history of Churchill Bayou. A PUD is a process available for developments that offer unique design characteristics resulting in a significant public benefit. I do not see how a wedding venue in the middle of the wetlands is a significant public benefit. I do not see how a nature pavilion with parking is a significant public benefit with state parks in such close proximity. Not only is this the inexpensive solution, it is also the easiest way for Brock to comply with PDU requirements. What about a specialty grocery store or a farmer's market? What about moving the pickleball courts? On the flip side, what if this is a tourist hotspot? What will be done to prevent short-term rentals? I can't imagine 15, 20, 40 people using the proposed parking space and using the pavilion for a wedding. Think of all the noise and lights. What about the pollution runoff from all the new roads and buildings? We need to protect the waterways and the wildlife they support. If this PUD is approved, it will systematically destroy both. What I see is all the density pushed to the bayou, decreased property values, and lower design standards than allowed by the Land Development Code. It is my understanding that the Walton County Board of County Commissioners has the discretion to place conditions that ensure compatibility of the project with the surrounding areas and ensure compliance with the comprehensive plans. I urge you to please visit the site. Truly understand what we are fighting for. I beg of you to not allow the misuse of the intent of the PDU process. In April 2015, Wayne Dice signed into immediate effect the guidance on conducting and analyzing a compatibility analysis. It is my understanding that Brock will complete their own compatibility analysis. If that is the case, I would like to request a future meeting with Kelly or Mac to review it line by line. On a final note, I would also like to go on record that I am not anti-development. I make my living selling real estate, and I love what I do. But ultimately, my goal is to be Vernon's voice, fight for the history of South Walton, and protect Churchill Bayou.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that they were using the PUD to reduce the quality of design.
That's my feeling, yes, sir.
Can you specifically enumerate what that is?
Well, I don't believe that I believe that the clubhouse, the PUD of them having the pickleball courts up to the north of the property, I think those should be moved down further to actually have the public benefit. I don't see any public benefit.
How does that violate? Are you concerned that that violates a particular part of the code or gives them some kind of out or waiver of some requirement in the code?
No, I just don't
that's-
think that there's no, I don't see the public benefit of what they've designed.
Okay, that's different than they're using the PUD to lessen the standards that we apply, because that's not the case. In fact, the PUD actually provides increased standards.
To the Land Development Code, and why I want to make sure that the compatibility of the neighborhood, of our surrounding neighborhood, is met. And I feel like if what they're proposing with their floor plans and their price points is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood.
Okay, one other question. How far away do you live from that proposed wedding venue site? No, please.
So the wedding venue site is down here.
Mm-hmm.
My major concern is the clubhouse and the pavilion here at the clubhouse. This is my lot.
Okay, you're across the bayou from the proposed clubhouse location. Okay.
And just to clarify,
Yes, she made that very clear. Yes, ma'am. Did you have any other comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak on this particular development? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Landry in the back.
You've heard a lot about this, haven't you? My name is Margaret Landry. I live on Joy Lane, not far, not as close as some of the others, but not too far. I want to thank Mr. Brock and Mr. Eubanks, as well as Ms. Schultz, for meeting with us as many times as they have. It's been very helpful and nice. And I'm just going to read from this and try to be as quick as possible. I know we've heard a lot. I understand that they will be clustering their density on the small neighborhood and neighborhood infill portion of the property. Those upper parts have some wetlands as well. They are using the density of all the property, all the parcels on the south to cluster on the north of the bay. The two parcels at the north of the bay should have a density, the neighborhood infill and small neighborhood should have a density of either 44 homes to 56 homes. The intent of that zoning category of the two parcels is not to hold a density for all the property to the south of it. This is an environmentally sensitive area. Out of the 103 acres, you've heard 40 is wetlands, which is substantial. I think they can make a good profit by building the intended use for neighborhood infill and small neighborhood. I understand the benefit of clustering outside of the wetland area. However, what they have done is using that 40 acres that is completely wetland so that they can cluster on the bay side. Everything they do on this property will impact Choctawhatchee Bay. The runoff will have a negative impact. The bay has a significant impact on our economy. I think we need to be careful about that. Everybody wants a view. However, a PUD shouldn't be allowed to incorporate all the land south to cluster at the most environmentally sensitive areas. If the PUD is denied, they can still develop these parcels and still make money. They're not a nonprofit. I think they have a right to develop this property, in keeping, and I know everybody's talked about the feel of the neighborhood, and you've talked about the PUDs and Seaside and Origins and all those other ones, but that's a different neighborhood than what we have south of 98. Ours, is more of a community. These, having all the clustering on the bay will force a lot of pollution onto the bay. To allow this PUD and the density would work at cross purposes with many county and state agencies. These agencies are working to protect water quality, habitat, and natural resources in the bay. Some have received grants through the Restore Act to provide water quality of the bay. Developments, as you know, is one of the main causes of decline of the bay, and there's a lot of research on that, and I've got some research I can give you, but you know that. This development is not compatible with the surrounding area in many different levels. Our county is growing at an unprecedented rate, particularly in beautiful, environmentally sensitive areas. Everybody wants a view of the bay, but there's limited of that. Approving this PUD will have a negative effect on the quality of the bay. And if we do, there will be more to come. There's another PUD that's being heard right after this one. They can develop that property, and they can develop it with some beautiful, I think everyone has said estate-size homes, but homes that are more appropriate for the community. So I think this one will have a domino effect if we allow it. Any questions?
The small neighborhood zoning has been on there since '96.
It doesn't matter how long it's been on there, but it's a range. You don't get maximum, right, on that? I mean, the
Small
intent,
neighborhood, it is a range based on the design of your development. It is not a compatibility range. It's if you do certain things, you can get up to 10 units per acre.
right,
And overall, this is, the least density on this site is conservation residential, 2 units per acre.
Right.
Your overall density is approximately 2 units per acre, including the small neighborhood
agree with you.
and the neighborhood infill portion.
But it's pushed up by the bay. It's pushed to
it's-
a very environmentally sensitive area. All that runoff is going into the bay.
No, ma'am.
No?
All that runoff is contained on site. It's a 100-year storm.
Well, you hope it will. You hope it will. But people are going to use pesticides, herbicides in their yards. That's running off into the bay.
And
I mean,
do we have that on those big, large residential lots surrounding the bay? I think we probably have True Green on every one of those lots.
well, you know what? But they're a lot larger. The lots are larger.
Which
That's
means they put a lot more chemicals out to make it
No,
green.
not always. Not always. The lots are larger. The compatibility with the lots right along the bay, you can look on either side, and they're larger. So,
Yes, ma'am, I accept your point.
all right.
Yes. Anyone else wishing to speak on this particular development? Yes, ma'am.
Brief because a lot of others hit my points.
And if we can-
I'm Ashley Kappelman.
And if we can try to keep this to technical compliance.
Yes.
As opposed to, I don't like this in my neighborhood.
Yes.
There'll be an opportunity for that. There will be an opportunity for that.
So I am across the bayou from
Okay. Thank you.
Central Bayou Estates. I'm Ashley Kappelman, did I say that part? So my mom bought the property in 2018. I purchased it last May from her. My largest concerns are the compatibility of our neighborhood to theirs. Jelena mentioned lot size. So ours are 0.76 of an acre to 1.38, mine being 1.31. Theirs are proposed from 0.28 to 0.57. So my concern is the value of my property and what I'm going to be looking at, honestly, across this small waterway. And I know we've talked about the bayou. I don't know if you guys have actually seen what we're talking about here. It's a very narrow body of water. And even in this photo, it's low tide, and there you can see some of the little islands popping up. It's shallow, it's narrow, it's small. Everything that they do over here, I'm going to see and hear. This is the view from my porch, which my home is on pilings. So I'm going to see several of those lots, those homes, and possibly the townhomes behind them.
Yes, ma'am, I expect you will.
Yep. So I'm just concerned about the construction of the homes they're going to be building and the lot size for the waterfront lots. We haven't had any sales. We're a smaller neighborhood. Churchill Oaks lots are 700,000 to 800,000 for the recently solds. Brock talked about 800 to $1 million. That's with the 2,200 to 2,600 square foot homes. That's $386 a square foot versus Churchill Oaks, $647 to $785 a square foot. And those are for custom homes, like our homes are custom homes. Another thing, as far as the visual, I'm concerned about the 50-foot easement. In one of our meetings with Brock, they even said once those lots are sold, that whatever those homeowners do with their lots, they can do with their lots. Meaning that those homeowners can cut down every tree, every shrub, take out every plant to water's edge, is my understanding. So we're hoping that, they can put something in their neighborhood covenants to keep that buffer. And you can even see, here's my buffer.
Can they clear to the water's edge? No, ma'am, they cannot do that.
They cannot,
that's
so
in the
they
land
have to
development
keep everything
code.
that's in that 50-foot.
We've got a 50-foot shoreline buffer there. They can clear for access to the shoreline, but they can't clear the whole shoreline and turn it into a lawn, like
Okay.
some of your neighbors may have done to the north.
Okay,
They will not be able to do that in this development.
okay, and that will be in their covenants?
In the land development code, it'll also be in the approved plans. It will show that 50-foot shoreline buffer.
Okay,
And we can require that to be added to covenants. I would expect it will be in the PUD document, which is an additional document that gets added to the land development code if this PUD does get approved. There's an additional document that provides additional restrictions that the board will approve, and that I would expect that that would be repeated in there.
okay. Last thing I want to touch on is the community dock. Again, with this photo, and they've mentioned pontoon boat rentals in this meeting. So how many pontoon boat rentals are we going to have coming and going in this small bayou? If there's a community dock, I'm assuming everyone in that community, which is 204 homes, can use that dock. Can they pull their boats up to that dock?
My impression was this was going to be a very small dock with one community-owned pontoon boat, but that's something that can be specifically confirmed, and I think there are questions in the tech review comments that are requests for additional information that speak to that.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
ma'am, and that's a very good point to clarify.
Okay. Again, just touching on the lighting, I know I believe they have not submitted a lighting plan, but that's a concern too, how much light will be visible from our homes at nighttime.
Well, at present, there's no outside lighting proposed that would be common area kinds of lighting. That doesn't include lighting like on someone's back patio or something like that on an individual home. But we expect we will either have a lighting plan or language in the PUD documents that says there will be no common area lighting.
Okay, so no lighting in the pool area at night?
Until we have a lighting plan, that's correct.
Okay,
Lighting plan would approve that.
all right. I believe that's all I
I expect
have.
at some point we're going to get a lighting plan.
Right.
Likely with the next submittal, but
Right,
we'll have more information on that. But
okay.
without the approved lighting